one hiding under your bed, teeth ground sharp and eyes glowing red.
Okay, so the first known time this thing happened was about 2-3 years ago when I was coming home from a detention I had after school that was an hour long. It was about 4:15 in the afternoon. As I'm literally stepping foot through the door, my brother and his friend walk into the kitchen. His friend looks at me and says, "How did you get downstairs so fast?" I was confused and just said I just got home. He started acting all weird with me, being like, "Stop messing about. You were just upstairs in your bed." I kept telling him I just got home, but he was dead set on the fact that I was asleep upstairs. My brother then went back upstairs and I just assumed he had forgotten something. At this point, my brother hadn't said a word to me. When we talked about it later on, he said the reason he went back upstairs is because he saw me too, in bed, and was checking to see if anyone was in my room. Since then, multiple people have seen me or something that looks like me around the house. It started off as it just being me, but recently my friend has seen my brother a few times. Once I actually heard her say hi to him in the kitchen and thought she was saying hi to me. So I went into the kitchen and she said, "What the hell? Where did Riley go? He was just stood there at the sink." I was laughing because I was sat in the living room, so my brother would have had to walk past me to get in and out of the kitchen. So again, I thought she was joking at first. Then I remembered I'd never even told her about the past experiences like this. I honestly have no idea what's going on. All I know is something keeps presenting itself as me and my brother to people, and it's getting pretty creepy. Does anyone have any ideas on what this might be? There have been so many little experiences that have happened in my house, and nearly everyone has seen something. Not a single one of my friends have stayed over and not experienced something. A couple of more examples. Me and one of my best friends were sat downstairs. At like 1 or 2 a.m, she had fallen asleep, and I was still watching TV when the door to the kitchen started rattling. Just a little at first. I blew it off because it does that sometimes due to the slight draft from my front door. But then, the handle started shaking aggressively, like it was being messed with. I woke my friend up and told her we were sleeping in my room instead. We fell asleep with my door closed and locked, which I don't normally do, but my friend couldn't sleep unless it was dark. At about 2:30 a.m, my friend wakes me up and tells me my door just opened. I looked at my bedroom door and it was wide open, but it was locked from the inside and there's no way to open it from the outside. It also couldn't have been her because I have a single bed, so we were pretty cramped in next to each other. I would have felt her get out of bed to open the door. Another small thing that happens very often. My great-grandma passed away a couple of years ago, and because my bedroom is extremely small, my nana, her daughter, gave me my great-grandma's wardrobe, as it's very small and could easily fit. I also have my grandma's engagement ring, which she gave to me when she was alive. When I tell you I hear knocking from this wardrobe every day and every night, I kind of make a joke out of it. And we'll be like, "Okay, come on. Nah, Laura, stop it." And it will stop every time I tell it to. There's also a specific corner in my living room. It has a big leather spinning chair in it, and has always given me the strangest feeling, like very uneasy. One night, me and my brother and 2 friends were sat watching TV, and no one was sitting in that corner, when all of a sudden, one of my friends looked over and screams, then starts covering her eyes. I started covering my ears and freaking out a bit because I was startled. When we asked her why she screamed, she said that she saw a tall, dark figure of a man stood in the corner behind the chair. There's loads more that have happened in my house, and none of it seriously creeps me out, apart from whatever that thing is that keeps appearing as me or my sibling. Something about that makes me feel very uneasy.
So this isn't probably as scary as most of the stories on this subreddit, but I'll put it here anyway. I was 16 when this happened. So my mom and I stayed the night at my sister's house. We were staying in a bedroom in the basement. The basement was completely renovated and had windows and a door leading into the backyard. So not very creepy. My mom, sister, and her kids were all upstairs eating breakfast while I went to have a shower in the bathroom right next to our room. Everything was fine until I got out and was drying myself off. As I was drying myself off, the light started to lightly flicker, but I didn't really think anything of it. I realized I forgot to grab my clothes, so I quickly dried off, wrapped a towel around myself, and went to the door. It didn't open. I figured I might have just locked the door and maybe just forgot, though I was sure I didn't. I unlocked it and tried to open it. It still didn't open. It was then that the light started to flicker more rapidly, as if someone was quickly hitting the light switch on and off. I started to freak out and desperately tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge no matter what I did. The lights started to flicker on and off quicker and quicker. I yelled for help. I could hear my mom running down the stairs. But then the lights stopped and I was just suddenly able to open the door right as my mom was rounding the corner to enter the hallway. When I told my mom and sister, they thought it was funny. My sister said it was probably just the steam making the lights flicker. But that doesn't explain why the door wouldn't open, no matter which way I turned the lock. The whole incident, from when the lights started rapidly flickering to when I was able to actually open the door, probably only lasted 25 to 30 seconds.
I've lived in my current house for around 5 years now. It's not a very old house, built in the mid to late 2000s. But I've occasionally had some odd experiences. They don't happen very often. Just for fun, one time I decided to do a voice recording while I slept. In the morning I listened back to it. About 26 minutes into it, I hear this deep growl. It is very faint, and I mean really faint. I had to turn up my volume all the way to hear it. It was very creepy. There's also been a couple of times where I've heard knocks coming from my brother's room on the wall that connects our rooms. I'd go to his room to see what he wants, but he's not there. He was actually downstairs watching TV in the living room. I've also heard what sounded like someone digging in a bucket of Legos coming from his room as well, only to find out he's downstairs again. We do have cats, but they were not anywhere near his room at the time. More recently, something knocked on my bedroom door twice. I yelled, "Come in," thinking it was my mum needing something from me, but nobody answered or came into my room. Not long after this, I was walking downstairs, and as I turned to go down the second set of stairs from the landing, I see a white, misty figure on the stairs behind me. It could have been a reflection from my glasses, but there were no lights on, and nothing shining behind me or close enough to cause a reflection. I'm not sure what to think about all that's happened.
Rational believer here. I believe in the supernatural, yeah, but I don't think everything that goes bump in the night is an actual ghost. Things are getting a little too surreal, even for my head. I live in a small 2-bedroom house. It's cozy but comfortable. I've lived here for about 2 years. Things started off harmless enough. Doors were always being closed that were left open, creaks in the house. Random things that seemed to be moved. Nothing like that would be drawing immediate fear. My girlfriend said that she felt like she had eyes on her when I was at work and claimed that she would constantly be seeing something moving towards the back of the house. All doubt sort of got erased one day when we walked in the house and the back room door slammed shut. I thought we might have an intruder, so I loaded up my pistol and went in, but there was nothing there. Finally, we just decided to have the house blessed. Well, that didn't help. My girlfriend left to take care of her dad, and I was the one who had to endure the house. I started experiencing weird things, like my laundry being thrown around, and once I found my boots sitting on the kitchen counter. The house is double windowed because the old lady who owned it before me was really paranoid, so it's nearly impossible to break in. It's doable, but unlikely. To me, I noticed things were getting increasingly weird when I closed the door that leads from the living room to the kitchen. Anytime it was closed, something from the other side would try and open it. I thought it was just airflow until I started noticing that the knob was twisting. It was the equivalent of a toddler trying to open the door, but it would try in increments of 3. 2 light pulls, then 1 hard yank. That's when I figured I was dealing with a haunting. Likely there was unofficially no more doubt. One night after working a 16-hour day, the door started pulling aggressively. I was already in a funky mood, so I got up and stormed into the kitchen, where I started screaming at whatever the hell is in this house. I was so damn frustrated that I said, "If you want to freaking go, we'll go." As I walked back into the living room, a jar of sugar flew off the counter and hit my stove, which was only about a foot to the left of me. I was scared, but I stayed in the house. Next came issues while I was asleep. I would wake up about 10 to 3 in the morning, where I would get the impression that somebody was standing behind the door of the kitchen. I would freeze from being so scared. One night while I was asleep, I actually heard footsteps running towards me, and when I woke up, the door to the kitchen was wide open. This would be the first time that the door was actually successfully opened. I also have a small death statue of the sirens from Greek mythology. While home one night, I heard a thud in the back room and found that the statue had been decapitated. The base of the figure was still on my desk, but the head was on the ground. Also, while in that same room, I was checking something on my computer and had something slam behind me into the wall. It sounded like somebody had taken their palm and just hit it really hard. I was almost numb to it at this point. The last encounter I had, maybe 5 days ago, was when I got called to work about 3:30 in the morning. I was pulling out of my driveway when I saw something walk by the window. When I did a double take, I saw what looked like a shadowy figure staring back at me. I get chills even typing this out. I plan on moving due to work, but I want this settled. I don't want to pass this on to the next group of folks that roll into that house. I really don't know what to do. I know it wouldn't be my problem, but the last thing I want is for a family to move in and have to deal with this. Any thoughts? Edit. I was able to get in contact with the medium in a nearby city, but I kicked him out of the house. He was delusional. I won't get into him much here, it was just a waste of time. I did, however, find the previous owner's granddaughter, who I wasn't even aware existed. She agreed to a phone conversation where she told me some things that may add to some form of an answer. She mentioned that when her great-grandmother lived in that house, her mother hired a nanny who stayed in from what is now my home office, which is where we saw the door slamming. Not sure if that's an actual connection. But I found out her name was Ms. Alice. She was someone who claimed to be a devout Catholic, but in actuality was a voodoo practitioner by night. Apparently this woman made children in the house pray to quote-unquote God over black candles. When this happened, the lady who had the place before me would claim to see a large woman standing in the doorway, watching her sleep. This would be the door between my kitchen and my living room. A few other things were mentioned, such as them hearing scratches along the side of the house, seeing big spiders crawling around the beds that weren't really there, and seeing someone's face peering through the windows. Some of this is somewhat rational, but I can also see how it's applicable. This is just the most recent info I've had.
When I was pregnant, me and my kid's father stayed at his cousin's house for about a month before we moved into our apartment. It's an old farmhouse in a newly developed area of Warwick, Rhode Island. There are farms and woods in one direction and a small town in the other. We were told when we moved in that the house had been built in the mid-1800s, which to me was super interesting until my kid's father, I'll call him Brian, remarked at how the stairs seemed awfully dark and creepy in the middle of the day. And when I looked, he was right. It gave off such a sinister vibe. We slept in the living room, and at night could see through the kitchen and it was as if the stairs became a dark, uncomfortable void. When we brought this up to Brian's cousin and his wife, they proceeded to laugh and tell us stories of people being pushed down the stairs. I don't think they believed in ghosts, and the husband was an abusive drunk and drug addict, so they had enough problems clearly. That house was chaotic. The husband and wife clearly were having serious issues, emotionally and financially. They had a 6-year-old son who was afraid to sleep upstairs by himself because the shadows scared him. Great. After being in the house alone a couple of times and seeing genuine human figures out of the corner of my eye, or even better, black dots on the floor with what looked like long spindly legs running out, but when you'd look at them straight on, would disappear. A few times I would see a figure out of the corner of my eye, look and see one of the family members who I hadn't heard come in. I think that freaked me out the most, because how can you explain to yourself seeing a person and sometimes nothing being there? Other times, you expect it to disappear, but it would in fact be a person standing there this time. So weird. Brian would say how sitting in one chair in the living room, you'd want to look over your shoulder into the doorway, as if someone was coming down a set of stairs that used to be there. This also freaked me out, considering I slept right near the doorway and often would get a feeling of someone coming toward me. One day, me and Brian were the only two in the entire house, facing one another about 2 feet away, face to face, talking loud as we usually do. Directly in the middle of us, we heard a woman's voice say, "Shh." I asked if he had said that, and he stared at me with huge eyes and asked, "No, did you?" Then we laughed it off, as we were clearly talking too loud for the inhabitants, apparently. We eventually brought this up to the family, who included a second cousin living upstairs, and they confirmed that they too saw and felt things. They told us they assumed the black voids that ran on the floor were just one of their dogs and ignored it if it wasn't. The cousin who lived upstairs said that the curtains to his closet often moved, like they were being pushed, but he chalked it up to being stoned or tired. There was no breeze. The wife told me when they first moved there, her son would see a man in a hat, but assumed it was his imagination. How could you live in a house so clearly haunted and just pass it off? The front of the house at night was avoided by basically everyone, as it was right where it felt like someone was walking by the doorframe at you in the living room. One night, I didn't feel like walking all the way around this huge house to the car, so I walked as fast as I could to the car through the front door. I heard a deep growling coming from the side of the house. They owned 3 dogs, one of which was a bull mastiff. Too freaked out to call for her, I ran in and, to my horror, all 3 dogs were in the house. Needless to say, I didn't use that entrance again. It was such an emotionally depressing house, and maybe me being pregnant, I was just more aware of everything. There were other weird things, but one of the last conversations I had with one of the roommates renting a back room, it was down a long hallway at the very end, the only door in this isolated hallway. I told her about me and Brian hearing shh directly in the middle of us. She explained she hears the exact same thing in the hallway if she and her son were getting loud, but was sure it was the owner's young son sneaking into the hallway. But I'm not so sure.
Kinda new to Reddit, but wanted to share a few stories about what I believe is a bad spirit pretending to be a little girl that once haunted my house. The first ever encounter I had with the spirit was in my living room. It was late at night around 1 a.m. and I was sleeping on the couch. I had just painted my room, so my mom didn't want me to sleep and breathe in all the paint fumes. I was about to head to sleep when something extremely scary happened. I took my glasses off, making everything really blurry, and I turned to face towards the back of the couch. Close my eyes, and directly behind me I hear, "Maddie," which is my name, in a little girl's voice, being whispered clear as day. Keep in mind, I have 2 younger sisters and a little cousin that I live with. I turn around, not being able to really see, and say, yes, thinking one of my sisters was right there trying to talk to me. To my surprise, no one was there. I quickly put on my glasses and once again say, yes, hello, no one is there. I was really scared and hid under my blanket and grabbed my phone. I soon realized something even weirder happened. My sister, who is the heaviest sleeper I know, texted me at the exact same time I heard the voice. I still have the message on my phone from her that read, "Are you awake?" I answer it with my hands shaking and type, "Was that you?" And she goes, "What?" And I realize it wasn't her and tell her to quickly come downstairs to the living room. She meets me down on the couch and turns on the light. I tell her everything that had just happened. I begin to wonder why she was even up. So I ask, and she gives me a chilling response. She said, "I'm not sure, but I got woken up by something and got this weird feeling that something was wrong. So I decided to text you." I asked if me talking woke her up, and she said no. And that part really freaked me out. After several things happened involving the spirit, everyone in my house has had encounters with her. Even my mom, who doesn't believe in anything. One time my grandma, who also lives with us, told me that around 3 or 4ish in the morning, she got woken up by my little cousin, who was maybe 7 at the time, talking to herself and laughing. My grandma asked her why she was laughing and talking. Cousin said she was playing with her friend Rosie, who found out that my cousin was communicating with the spirit. Another time my grandma had woken up really late at night, to the sound of my TV blasting church/biblical music in my room. What's crazy is 1, I wasn't even home, I was at a sleepover. 2, I never even watched TV ever, so there's no way my TV would be on, and at volume 100. 3, my door is always shut, because I have a pet bird, so there's no way the dogs or cats could have jumped on the remote. 4, I would have never had my TV on some kind of church music channel. My grandma said she thought she was dead because of the music. I have so many more stories, but these are just a few of the crazy ones. I don't get good vibes from the spirit, which is why I think it's a bad spirit in disguise as a little girl.
So my friend had moved into a shared house in the old side of Roseville, California. He invited me over about a week after moving there. He lived with a couple of girls who were in a relationship, and also moved his newish girlfriend in with him. The girls occupied one end of the house, near the backyard, and my friend and his lady were in the bedroom next to the front door. There was another bedroom in the middle of the house that connected to my friend's room via a conjoined bathroom. This was the only bathroom in the house. So the first night my friend invites me over to hang out. I'm at work, closing manager at Taco Bell, and I tell him I'll be a couple of hours before I can come over, and he says that's fine. They just made some edibles and there were plenty to spare, so come over and chill. A couple of hours later, I get off and head over to his house. Upon knocking on the door, the 2 roommate girls answered. They told me that my friend and his girlfriend had eaten some edibles right after making them and promptly passed out after inviting me over. Not that surprising when it comes to my friends. They invited me in anyway, since I had made the drive out, and also brought some weed with me. We played All-Star Battle Royale on PS4 until about 2 a.m. When they were turning into bed, they directed me to the guest bedroom. So the layout of the guest bedroom is as follows. It is right off the living room and is conjoined by the bathroom to my friend that I came to visit's bedroom, where he and his girlfriend were sleeping. There was also a pull-down attic door on the ceiling near the standard sliding door mirror closet. When I had first entered the room, I jokingly said to one of the girls that the attic was creepy as hell, and I had to open the door once myself to know what kind of noise it made, so I'd know when to nope the hell out if I heard it while sleeping. So about 15 minutes later, I'm ready to sleep and I'm plugging my phone into the wall socket and setting my alarm. As I'm slightly bent over messing with my phone, I hear the telltale creaking noise of the attic door opening. I spun around and looked up, and sure enough, it was open a few inches, but there was nothing but darkness to be seen in the gap. It honestly scared me quite a bit, but the bed was much more comfortable than the couch we had been hanging out on earlier. So I was determined to sleep in the room. Ghosts be damned. I mustered up the courage to close the attic door, with some effort mind you, and lay down to go to bed. A little while later, as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard the noise of what sounded like my friend waking up, stretching, yawning, and walking through the living room. I laughed to myself a little bit, thinking that he probably had extreme dry mouth and was heading for some water. Then, I was suddenly struck by a feeling of dread. I didn't hear any footsteps as the voice crossed the living room. Immediately, upon realizing this, the light switch on the wall by the door near the living room flips on hard, like someone slapped it up with force. My eyes were already closed when this happened, and I'm somewhat ashamed to say, I shut them even harder when I heard the light switch. I laid there for a long time, artificial light searing through my eyelids, and eerie silence hanging in the air. Eventually I fell asleep from sheer exhaustion, though I don't know how long it took or what time it was. The next morning I was the last person in the house to wake up. Everybody was up and in the common areas of the house making breakfast and talking. The door from the guest room to the living room was open and the light was off. Most strangely though, my socks were neatly folded and tucked behind a mirror, leaning against the wall. Tucked as in pinned where the mirror was leaning against the wall, even though I had kicked them off while laying in bed. I walked out to where everybody was conversing, and after saying hi to my friend and making fun of him for passing out, decided I would talk to them about what happened the night before. I started off lightly with the questions, not wanting to be the crazy friend who doesn't get invited back to hang out. So the conversation went as such. Hey guys, good morning, etc. So, did anyone go into the bathroom last night through the room I was sleeping in? Various responses of nope, nah, we slept through the night. Okay, so nobody would have turned on my light then. Again, nope, didn't touch it, etc. And was it on this morning when you guys woke up and came out? Again, nope, it was off when we woke up, and nobody said they turned it off. Okay, final weirdest question, I said, half laughing. Did anyone pick up my socks and tuck them behind the mirror? At this point, they all stopped what they were doing and were just staring at me. I thought my sanity was being seriously questioned when finally one of the girls said something along the lines of, "Wow, so the house is already messing with you?" I stayed over there at the house 4 or 5 days a week for the next few months because of my curiosity about the haunting and the property itself. There were a lot more occurrences I can write about, if you guys are interested, that ramp up in intensity as time goes on. First, I'd like to give you an idea of the property. There was the main house with the room I've described and the bedroom attached via the bathroom. The living room was attached to both of these rooms and continued into a small dining room area that was then attached to the kitchen/washing machine dryer area, and an additional bedroom where the girls slept, which had the only door to the backyard. In the backyard there was a workshop or garage area. I call it a garage because there was a manual roll-up door attached to the side that we never used, as it was extremely rusted. There was also a small attic on top of the garage space, with a full stairwell leading up to it. Inside of the room we found a fairly thick stack of old newspapers, 40s if I remember correctly. Inside the room, it was always the polar opposite of the temperature outside. Like, if it was cold with cutting wind, then the inside of the garage attic would be warm and musty smelling, almost heavy. If it was a hot-ass dry day, like it often gets in California heat, it would be cold as ice, with your breath visible in the air. As Halloween was approaching, we decided to throw a party with a bunch of our friends. We went about setting up for the party and ultimately decided that the attic would be the ideal beer pong spot. So we set up everything in the attic, and while we're up there, we notice a door that seemingly has no use. I decide to be the one to look inside. Upon opening the door, I saw that the entire floor was covered with packing peanuts, with another mysterious door at the far end of the left wall, semi in the shadows. Not trusting the flooring to support my weight, and really not wanting to go in anyway, I shut the door and continued setting up. The party was really fun and went off without a hitch. We all played Pong in the attic with people going up and down with no problem throughout the night. The next day was a different story. I took it upon myself to clean up the house, since I had played my fair part in planning the whole thing. Being one of the first people to wake up, I decided to start with the attic, clearing out the beer bottles, red Solo cups, and random detritus. I managed to get the trash and even the collapsible ping pong table out of the attic, and went back to close it up for good. In a standing position, I tried to close the attic door entirely, and upon pressing up on the door, it dropped back down a couple of inches like that first night. Same noise and all. I tried pushing it up again. I'm 6 foot tall with longer wingspan, so plenty high enough to press without much effort. And it dropped once more. Frustrated, I decided I would jump up and force it into place. At the apex of my leap, I pressed upward hard and held in place for a second. As soon as I let go, the attic door came flying down back at me with at least twice the force I shoved it up with. I had to spin and move to the right to avoid the heavy door slamming me into the wall. It was at least 100 pounds with the cover. The force was enough to crack a glass-covered photo and the paint on the wall behind it. After the party cleanup, things were pretty relaxed for a while, save one thing. The shared bathroom that connected the guest bedroom to my friend's bedroom had a very Salvador Dali feel to it. It is the best way I can think to describe it. The dimensions seemed strange, even though there was no real reason to feel like this since the architecture was pretty standard. On top of this weird dimensional strangeness, every person that occupied that bathroom for a few minutes or more would start to hear voices. More specifically, the voices of the other people in the house saying mean, nasty things that were always at the forefront of said person occupying the bathroom's insecurities. It happened to me on more than one occasion, to the point where I, and literally all our friends that came to visit, would come out of the bathroom and have to seriously ask if our best friends were talking the most messed up, nasty shit about me behind my back. I truly thought they were, until a fairly new friend came over and asked the same of us when she came out of the bathroom. I still decided to stay over at the house because I, as well as the girls especially, was very freaked out and curious as to what was happening. One night while I was at work, the girls and my friend were sitting out on the patio area near the backyard garage where we would smoke cigarettes. The topic of conversation got around to me, and they said as soon as we mentioned your name, we heard a loud thwack sound come from inside the garage. Upon investigating, they saw a hatchet that had been placed on the wall between nails, had fallen straight down, and stuck blade side into the wooden top of the workbench below it.
Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.